Previously, after Jinwoo's father disappeared into the air, leaving Jinwoo standing alone. We then see a drone flying over the ruined city. A report comes in confirming that Hunter Thomas Andre is no longer in life-threatening condition. Emergency crews are on site, and ambulances rush the injured to nearby hospitals. For the moment, the chaos had finally begun to settle. Chairman Woo Jin-cheol stood silently, gazing at the devastation left behind by the battle between monarchs. These were no ordinary monsters. He recalled what Sung Jin-Woo had once told him at the funeral of Chairman Go Gun-hee, that he would personally bring down those responsible. Remembering those words, tears welled up in Woo Jin-cheol's eyes. To him, this was proof that the Frost Monarch had paid the price, and with quiet gratitude, he thanked Jinwoo for avenging the late chairman. Meanwhile, the Hunters Association released a statement, declaring the monsters unidentifiable. The destruction they had caused was staggering, leaving both citizens and hunters shaken. Yet this was only a brief calm. In just a few days, another disaster would shake the world. Time passed, and soon hunters from every corner of the globe gathered beneath the gigantic gate still suspended in the skies. Among them was China's strongest hunter, the seven-star Liu Zhigang. Looking up, he remarked on the overwhelming size of the gate. It was even more massive than he had heard. In his eyes, it was large enough to swallow every hunter on Earth without a trace. Thomas Andre, now fully recovered, stood among the elite hunters. He declared that everything would soon begin. His voice carried a mix of resolve and anticipation. Chairman Woo Jin-cheol looked across the gathering and thought deeply. Never before had so many hunters from across the world been brought together in one place. But as he watched their faces, a grim thought lingered in his heart. How many of them would actually survive? Meanwhile, Jinwoo stood silently, his gaze fixed on the enormous gate, waiting for the inevitable moment when it would break open. Cha Hyen walked to his side and quietly admitted she had never seen him this nervous before. The tension on the battlefield was overwhelming as the gate began to crack. With a thunderous rumble, it finally split open, and the hunters prepared for the horde of monsters that would surely follow. But what stepped out stunned them all, most of all Jinwoo. From the gate did not emerge monsters, but shadow soldiers. The dark army poured into the world in waves, their ranks endless. The hunters instinctively raised their weapons, ready to fight, but before they could strike, a commanding voice rang out across the field, ordering them to stop. Confused murmurs spread. Why were they being told to halt? Chairman Woo Jin-cheol turned toward Jinwoo, demanding an explanation. Jinwoo, calm and steady, reassured him that everything was fine. The hunters froze, watching as the vast army descended and gathered before Jinwoo. Shadows filled the earth and sky, stretching farther than anyone could see. Then from within the formation, a massive figure emerged. With a ground-shaking thud, the enormous soldier dropped to one knee before Jinwoo. He introduced himself as the Grand Marshal of the Shadow Army, Bellion. One by one, every soldier followed. Dragons, beasts, and warriors alike lowered themselves in reverence. Bellion bowed deeply and addressed Jinwoo as their rightful liege. Behind Jinwoo, the hunters could only stare in disbelief. Thomas Andre leaned toward Leonard Newman, asking if he could see the creatures clearly. His gaze settled on the dragons, and he muttered that even a single one of them could pose a grave threat to humanity. Yet here, 3 dragons stood gathered at once. Jinwoo understood then. This was the true Shadow Army, the force Ashbourne had left behind for him. And as he took in the sight of his endless soldiers kneeling before him, he thought to himself, now the real war begins. Days later, inside the Korean Hunters Association headquarters, Chairman Woo Jin-cheol sat with officials in a conference room. The foreign press was demanding an explanation, while the American Hunter Bureau pressed for Sung Jin-Woo's location. Woo Jin-cheol considered the situation. Hundreds of thousands of demonic beasts had poured from the colossal gate, yet all of them had been absorbed into Jinwoo's army. Who could have imagined such an outcome? He addressed the room firmly, acknowledging everyone's confusion about Jinwoo's disappearance. But this wasn't the first time Jinwoo had vanished. They would have to get used to it. If even the association couldn't understand the burdens Jinwoo carried, then who could? Elsewhere, signs of battle stretched across a vast field. Jinwoo stood atop Tusk's massive hand, overseeing his soldiers as they clashed in mock combat. Grand Marshal Bellion stood nearby, observing. He remarked that dividing the army and holding practice battles was something he had never imagined as military training. Jinwoo replied with a faint smile. After all, his soldiers couldn't die. At that moment, Baru approached. Kneeling before Jinwoo, he requested permission to test his qualifications for the role of Grand Marshal. Rising, he turned toward Bellion and declared his challenge. Excited to see the outcome, Jinwoo granted permission. The soldiers quickly gathered to watch. As the duel began, Baru let out a piercing shriek, charging forward with ferocity. Bellion remained calm, unsheathing his greatsword. Jinwoo observed closely. Bellion's weapon resembled Igris's sword, though on a far greater scale. Bellion clearly leaned on raw strength rather than speed. That meant Baru might still have a chance. But as Baru closed the gap, Bellion's blade suddenly unraveled into a whip, striking in multiple directions at once. Baru dodged nimbly and tried to leap in, but the whip coiled around him, trapping him midair. Jinwoo's eyes narrowed. Is it already over? To neutralize Baru so quickly, Bellion's reflexes were beyond what Jinwoo had expected. Each strike carried enough force to shatter the earth itself. There was no question why this warrior held the title of Grand Marshal. Yet Jinwoo also knew one thing. Baru's greatest weapon was not strength, but his relentless tenacity. The scene shifted to China. At Beijing International Airport, Liu Zhigang and a small group of Chinese hunters, men and women who had rushed to help during the colossal gate crisis, stepped off the plane. The press swarmed them, praising them as brave representatives of China for coming to South Korea's aid. As Liu moved through the crowd, a reporter pressed him about critics at home who said China had no reason to intervene and asked for his view. Liu bristled at the suggestion. He told the reporter that anyone who thought China should have stayed out was ignoring geography and the threat on their doorstep. Liu explains his reasoning. He admitted that he was not confident enough that he alone could stop the disaster if Sung Jin-Woo failed. That uncertainty is why he chose to go and assist. In his mind, if anyone had a problem with his decision, they could test their courage by facing the demonic beast themselves. But before the media could press him further, the returning hunters entered the city. What awaited them there froze them in shock. Rising above the skyline, a horrifying sight loomed over Beijing. Liu Zhigang looked up in disbelief, his voice tight with shock as he muttered that such a thing was impossible. Overhead, a gigantic gate hung ominously in the skies of China. The story then cut to the monarchs. Yogamont, the monarch of Transfiguration, was briefing one of the other monarchs on the recent catastrophe. 3 of their number had been cut down by the Shadow Monarch. Listening coldly, the other monarch declared he would deal with the Shadow Monarch personally and ordered the rest not to interfere. From the edge of the chamber, a massive dragon's claw loomed into view, Antares revealing himself. He made it clear that further losses among their forces would not be tolerated, and Antares commanded his armies to prepare for battle, calling his soldiers to arms. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the sparring match between Baru and Grand Marshal Bellion was drawing to a close. Baru was driven into the ground. Bellion's great sword slammed down and landed inches from his face. The field fell silent as dust settled and the echoes of the clash faded. Baru struggled to his feet and insisted he could still continue. Jinwoo asked why Baru was so intent on becoming Grand Marshal. Baru answered that he wanted the rank so he could remain at Jinwoo's side forever as a loyal commander. Touched, Jinwoo smiled and told him that Grand Marshal could stand to his right, and Baru could stand to his left. When Baru grew emotional at being favored, Jinwoo cut him off playfully, telling him not to make a scene. Igris then stepped forward, asking for permission to challenge Bellion next, but Jinwoo waved him off and told Igris to take a position behind him. The tone was relaxed, camaraderie undercutting the raw power that had just been on display. Attention shifted as the dragons in Tusk readied a show of strength. The dragons combined their breath into a colossal blaze aimed at the sky. A demonstration meant to overwhelm the field. Tusk, however, only smirked. Wielding the orb of avarice, he answered with a single, enormous wave of fire that dwarfed the dragon's combined assault. The eruption of flame lit the island and could be seen from far across the sea, prompting cheers from Jinwoo's soldiers. Watching the spectacle, Jinwoo thought it felt a little like cheating to let Tusk use the orb during a contest. Noting soldiers carrying supplies nearby, he asked Bellion what they were doing. Bellion explained they were preparing a modest resting area so Jinwoo could stay comfortably while they remained on the island. Bellion then asked why Jinwoo had not recalled his shadow soldiers back into his own shadow. Jinwoo replied that he wanted to give them time to relax after being trapped in the dimensional rift for so long. Jinwoo turned the conversation toward a more personal question. Didn't Bellion miss Ashbourne, the former Shadow Monarch? Bellion answered solemnly that he had stood beside Ashbourne when the old monarch battled the rulers who opposed the absolute being. He said he had proclaimed himself Ashbourne's first soldier when Ashbourne gained the power of the Shadow Monarch, and that he had remained loyal for what felt like an eternity, never once doubting his master's decisions. Moved by Bellion's account, Jinwoo asked him to tell the story of his time with Ashbourne. Bellion warned that it might be a long tale, then began at the beginning, when he was born as a fruit of the world tree. He explained that many of the soldiers of the heavens originated from the world tree's branches, first manifesting as fruits that later became the mighty warriors who filled the sky. The world tree, Bellion said, was so vast its limbs spread across the heavens themselves. Meanwhile, Sung Jin-Woo stood at his kitchen counter, quietly preparing a meal for his family, while a heavy thought pressed at the back of his mind. He told himself the world had to know about the 8 armies, that those forces could appear at any moment. A war was coming, and he could not promise everyone's safety. The memory of the Dragon King's power had shown him how catastrophic the threat truly was. At the table, Gina praised Jinwoo's cooking to their mother, surprised that her brother could cook so well. Jinwoo smiled thinly, but could not shake the image of the Dragon King, entire lands reduced to ash by a single breath. Everyone needed to prepare for what was coming. His mother sensed the change in him and asked if something was wrong. She mentioned warmly that his father had always cooked before doing something dangerous, a habit Jinwoo apparently inherited. Jinwoo brushed it off and rose to answer the door, telling them there might be a visitor. No doorbell had sounded, but when he opened the door, he found Yu Myung-han, Jin-Ho's father, standing on the doorstep. Yu apologized for arriving unannounced and asked if he could speak with Jinwoo. As they walked, Yu explained that after waking from an eternal sleep, he had at first felt special, but then realized miracles like that were rare. Because only Jinwoo's mother and Yu himself had awakened before, Yu had suspected Jinwoo might be involved. Yu asked why Jinwoo had helped him. Jinwoo said he had acted because he judged Yu to be trustworthy. If Yu had been someone who chased power at all costs, Jinwoo would not have risked himself to save him. Deeply grateful, Yu offered to repay the favor and asked if Jinwoo needed anything. Jinwoo declined, but quietly requested one thing. Should anything happen to him, would Yu look after his mother and sister? Later, Chairman Wu Jinchou brought Jinwoo footage of a colossal gate hovering over Shanghai. He told Jinwoo it wasn't isolated. 8 other colossal gates had appeared across the globe. Wu asked whether those forces were Jinwoo's soldiers, but Jinwoo shook his head. These were enemies. Jinwoo then asked the chairman for one simple thing: trust. Without hesitation, Wu said he did. Jinwoo placed a finger on Wu Jinchou's temple and poured a flood of memory into him. Visions of the Dragon Monarch, the ruler's armies, ancient wars and dungeons, and the sheer terrifying scale of power Jinwoo had faced. The images overwhelmed Wu. When Jinwoo withdrew his finger, the chairman gasped, shaken and pale. Confronted with those memories, Wu confessed how wrong his old assumptions felt. He had believed hunters were humanity's shield, simple protectors against monsters. Now he understood the truth. The awakened were not just guardians. They were the ones capable of surviving the real war. The conflict was not merely humans versus beasts, but monarchs against rulers, forces beyond ordinary comprehension. Sweat on his brow, Wu asked if Jinwoo truly intended to face such enemies alone. Jinwoo answered calmly that he would. Desperate to help, Wu asked how the association could assist. The scene shifted to a large hall filled with representatives and hunters from around the world. Wu asked whether any additional contingents were en route. He was told no. Only the delegates from the 152 countries he had notified that morning. A man in the room remarked on how pale Wu looked and asked what Jinwoo had told him to produce such a reaction. Wu's mind replayed the image. An army of dragons emerging from darkness. A single colossal dragon flying behind them, its presence so overpowering that even the combined hunters of the world could not scratch it. Its breath alone could scorch entire continents. How, Wu wondered, did Jinwoo plan to fight that? He called Jinwoo and told him, "I've gathered the representatives from every country, as you asked. Where are you right now?" Before Wu could finish his sentence, Jinwoo materialized behind him and replied, "I've just arrived," making the chairman's question about location instantly meaningless. Wu warned that revealing the truth would trigger chaos. Some nations would not cope. Jinwoo acknowledged the risk. Wu, still wrestling with the revelation, warned that if Jinwoo acted on what he believed, the truth would inevitably come to light. Meanwhile, Director David Brennan sat in the conference room, quietly observing the gathering. Presidents, prime ministers, guild masters, and association chairmen had all assembled. So many powerful figures in one place. Brennan thought they all must be feeling the weight of whatever Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was about to reveal. He wished Jinwoo would say the gates would not cause much harm, just like the previous time. But deep down, he feared the opposite. If Jinwoo declared the worst, then everyone in that room would be facing grim times ahead. After a long pause, Jinwoo finally began to speak. He told the gathered leaders that no one would be able to avoid the coming battle. The enemy would reveal themselves before the eyes of the world and bring destruction everywhere. Some officials shook their heads, unable to believe his words. They asked whether he was claiming that even national-level hunters would not be enough. Jinwoo replied firmly. At least a few hundred demonic beasts would appear, and each one would be on par with Kamish, the greatest disaster in human history. Against such a force, not even national-level hunters would be able to stop them. The crowd grew restless and demanded proof. Without proof, they said, they could not believe him. In response, Jinwoo raised his hand. Gasps of terror erupted across the room as multiple gates suddenly appeared behind him. Panic broke out. Officials assumed Jinwoo had gained the terrifying ability to create gates at will, but he calmly explained that it was not his own power. Their true enemy could create gates whenever and wherever they desired, just as he had demonstrated. The only reason they had not yet acted was because their army was too large to mobilize all at once. A man sitting beside Director Brennan suddenly shouted in fear. He accused Jinwoo of being one of the enemy. He asked if the soldiers Jinwoo had brought from the last gate were meant to kill them. But as the words left his lips, he trembled, realizing what he had just said. Shaking, he corrected himself immediately, declaring that of course he trusted Hunter Sung Jin-Woo. Director Brennan, gathering his composure, asked Jinwoo the crucial question. "Now that we know what will emerge from the gates, what must we do?" Jinwoo's answer was clear. He told them, "Stay away from the gates. Get as far away as you can." The scene fast forwards. Cities around the world stood nearly empty. Jinwoo's speech had created a ripple effect across nations. His warning spread quickly. Humanity could not withstand the flood of demonic beasts that would come through the gates. People did everything they could to put distance between themselves and those portals. The narrative cuts back to Sung Jin-Woo, who orders his shadow lieutenant Beru to land. Beru obeys instantly and sits down beside him, calm and attentive. As Jinwoo surveys the colossal fortress around them, he wonders aloud whether a place so vast and imposing could truly be meant for him to live in. The scale and atmosphere make the idea feel surreal. Beru answers with a simple confidence. Anything less would not suit Jinwoo, his liege. Jinwoo notices a flag aloft and questions why it had been raised. In that moment, Bellion collapses to the ground nearby, drawing Jinwoo's attention. Jinwoo asks whether Bellion had engineered the display, then turns the conversation to a more troubling question. What would happen to the Shadow Army if the Shadow Monarch himself were to die? Would Bellion assume command? Bellion explains plainly that the Shadow's existence is bound to the Shadow Monarch. The instant Jinwoo dies, their lives would be extinguished as well. They are not independent beings but extensions of the Monarch's life force. Jinwoo discussed the upcoming war with Igris. The knight spoke with brutal honesty, telling his master that they did not stand a chance in an all-out war. On the ground nearby stood Beru and Bellion. Jinwoo turned to Bellion and asked how much larger he believed the enemy's army would be compared to their own. Bellion answered without hesitation. Their numbers would be at least 100 times greater. The realization hit Jinwoo hard. If Bellion was correct, then they would be facing an enemy force of at least 10 million soldiers. The scene opens in Canada. S-rank hunter J. Mills stands for an on-camera interview and dismisses the warnings that had been raised by Sung Jin-Woo at the recent gathering of world leaders. The interviewer points out that Sung Jin-Woo is widely regarded as one of the greatest hunters alive, and asks whether it wouldn't be prudent to take his warnings seriously. J. Mills shrugs off the suggestion, insisting that even the greatest hunters do not always speak the truth, and that caution should be applied to every claim. Later, Woo Jin-chul shows Jinwoo a television interview with J. Mills. On screen, Mills dismisses Jinwoo's warning and vows that Canadian hunters will stand and fight whatever emerges from the gates. Woo explains that hunters have been convening in Canada under J. Mills's leadership, and that elite forces from other countries are also positioning themselves for a major raid. Woo asks Jinwoo what his plan will be. Jinwoo replies that he will first travel to China to assist with a dungeon break there. Inwardly, Jinwoo acknowledges the harsh reality. He cannot possibly confront all 8 monarch armies at once. He must prioritize. His first duty is to protect Korea and his family, so he will eliminate the nearest threat before turning to the others. Jinwoo reasons that prolonging the conflict on favorable terms will increase humanity's odds. The longer the battle can be fought with careful strategy, the better the chance for Jinwoo and humankind to prevail. Time jumps forward. Jinwoo arrives in China and is greeted on the tarmac by hunter Liu Zhigang. Jinwoo asks why Liu, rather than government officials, is meeting him. Liu admits the officials had been occupied with pomp and ceremony, the trivial placards and formalities. So Liu came personally to escort Jinwoo. As they move toward the staging area, Jinwoo notices the gate looming on the horizon. So enormous it can be seen even from the airport. At the gate, Liu shows Jinwoo the assembled force gathered for the raid. He proudly describes the contingent as China's army of 100,000 hunters. Jinwoo takes in the vast numbers and allows himself a rare flicker of hope. With this many fighters, perhaps humanity has a fighting chance in the war to come. Liu stresses that the strength isn't only in numbers. These are China's elites, the most skilled hunters drawn from every province and division, gathered for a single decisive operation. When preparations finish, Liu tells Jinwoo the raid will begin soon. Jinwoo nods and begins summoning his shadow army. The sheer volume of shadows that answer Jinwoo's call leaves Liu speechless. It becomes clear that Jinwoo operates on an entirely different level. Baru steps forward among the summoned shadows and makes his presence known, asserting aloud that the king's left flank belongs to him. Jinwoo quickly quiets the tension. The gate begins to crack and fissure as everyone braces for monsters to pour forth from the sky. Jinwoo steels himself, ready for the storm. For a moment, nothing erupts. Bellion approaches Jinwoo and reports that he senses no life or presence within the gate. The emptiness is not limited to this site. Jinwoo asks Bellion about the other colossal gates that had appeared worldwide. Bellion replies that from the reports gathered by the shadow soldiers, every gate around the globe appears the same, silent and empty. Jinwoo's mind works quickly. He deduces the enemy's strategy. The multiple gates were a diversion, designed to split humanity's forces. The true threat, Jinwoo realizes, is concentrated in a single gate, the one farthest from his current position, where the enemy has amassed the bulk of its army, while the world's hunters were pulled thin by false alarms. The scene shifts back to Canada, where countless hunters have gathered, preparing to defend against the looming monster outbreak. At the very front stands J. Mills. He scoffs at the thought that everyone seems to be placing their hopes solely on Sung Jin-Woo. Nearby, a crowd of citizens rallies with passion, shouting that they would never surrender their homeland, that Canadian hunters would protect their people and land no matter what. But suddenly, the colossal gate begins to crack open. Everyone braces for monsters to pour out, yet nothing emerges. Hunters stand frozen in confusion. Whispers ripple through the ranks. Some begin to doubt, wondering if Jinwoo had been exaggerating the threat. Then, a humanoid figure slowly emerges, hovering in the air before descending. At first, the hunters think it might be just an ordinary human. The figure lands directly in front of J. Mills and asks whether he is the king of this place. Mills, caught off guard, hesitates. Another hunter quickly explains that demonic beasts are capable of crafting their own weapons, using rune-like symbols, and organizing themselves into strict hierarchies. Their intelligence rivals that of humans. They had merely chosen not to communicate until now. Hearing this, J. Mills smirks. In his mind, this must have been Jinwoo's secret all along, subjugating monsters through communication rather than pure force. Feeling bold, Mills declares that he could be their king. But the entity ignores him. It mutters instead that the one it seeks is not present. Just 10 minutes earlier, far away in China, Sung Jin-Woo was questioning officials, asking if there was any way to confirm what was happening at Canada's Colossal Gate. One official promised to attempt something. Meanwhile, Jinwoo reached out to Adam White of the Hunter Bureau to ask directly about the Canadian Gate. Through the call, Jinwoo could hear the noise of a crowd behind Adam. He realized instantly that Adam wasn't in a safe office. He was on site in Canada. Jinwoo demanded to know why he was there. Adam explained that the Bureau could not simply sit back and watch the crisis unfold. Many of their agents, including himself, had been dispatched to the site. Jinwoo frowned, realizing they still didn't grasp the true scale of the enemy army. He asked about the gate's condition. Adam reported that so far the gate was empty, silent like the other colossal gates that had appeared before. Relieved, Jinwoo exhaled, but almost immediately Adam's voice changed. He reported that something was emerging, not a beast, but a person. Jinwoo's eyes widened in shock. He shouted through the call, ordering Adam to run, to flee as far as possible. But the warning came too late. In a blinding flash of light, every hunter standing at the front was reduced to ash. Jinwoo urgently told Adam that he still had time, that he must run while he still could. But Adam, frozen in disbelief, lifted his gaze. From above, endless dragons began descending from the sky. An army of dragons, followed by all manner of demonic beasts, poured from the colossal gate. Adam stammered in horror, unable to comprehend how every type of creature could gather in one place. Jinwoo clenched his fists. It had finally begun, but he still had to save Adam White. Thankfully, he had already planted a shadow on Adam in the past, a safeguard for just such a moment. He prepared to use it to teleport Adam away from the battlefield. Just then, a massive high orc appeared before Adam. Jinwoo quickly told Adam that he would pull him out at once. But before he could act, a powerful entity approached Adam and demanded to know where he thought he was going. Adam's body locked in fear. With trembling lips, he called out Jinwoo's name. Desperate. In his final moment, he saw a blazing fireball surging straight toward him. Back in China, after hearing the loud blast from Canada, Sung Jin-Woo realized he was too late to prevent the initial devastation. He reflected grimly that this outcome should have been expected. His enemies knew they were facing his shadow army, an army that only grew stronger the longer a battle continued. Jinwoo thought strategically. His opponent's goal was to minimize prolonged battles by concentrating all their forces in a single location. Though 8 colossal gates had been opened as a diversion, the enemy funneled their full army through the gate farthest from his position. Even if Jinwoo rushed to the site immediately, he knew it would erupt into an all-out war. His plan to buy time had completely collapsed. Meanwhile, in Canada, Antares, the king of dragons and the monarch of destruction, observed the chaos with a cruel smirk. He savored the destruction around him, thinking of the sound of human heartbeats, the screams of the dying, and the obliteration of creatures as if it were music in his ears. Addressing the other monarchs, Antares confirmed that preparations were complete. With absolute authority, he ordered the army to annihilate everything, declaring that destruction was the sole purpose of their existence. Fast forward to a man in his office, watching live footage of the carnage unfold. He muttered to himself that everyone on the scene, hunters, agents, and reporters alike, must have perished. This man was Director David Brennan. As he watched, dread filled his mind. Hundreds of dragons surged forward, accompanied by endless waves of giants, beasts, and insect-like monsters. Brennan realized that no human force could contain this disaster. It's over, he thought grimly. There's no way to stop such an army. He understood it was only a matter of time before the monsters reached the United States. Brennan finally grasped why Sung Jin-Woo had warned everyone to stay as far away from the gates as possible. As he processed the grim reality, a shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. It was Jinwoo. Jinwoo, moving with urgency, explained that he had come seeking something specific. He asked Brennan for the runestone extracted from Kamish, the greatest dragon humanity had ever slain. The director, initially shocked, quickly composed himself. He explained that the runestone was under the Hunter Bureau's management. However, considering the dire circumstances, he awkwardly apologized, noting that he was still slightly disoriented. Internally, he reflected that the Bureau and runestones meant little if the entire U.S. was about to be destroyed. Brennan told Jinwoo that he could hand over the runestone, but asked why it was needed. Jinwoo explained that he planned to launch a counterattack using the immense power stored within it. As they moved toward the vault containing Kamish's runestone, Brennan asked a question weighing on his mind. If the beings called rulers had sent the demonic beasts, what exactly were the runestones found inside the beasts' bodies? Jinwoo explained that runestones were gifts from the rulers, designed to help humanity fight demonic beasts more efficiently. When a beast died, part of its abilities would be sealed within a runestone. The rulers created runestones as tools to strengthen humans, giving them a chance to survive the ultimate battle against the Monarchs' armies. Hearing this, Brennan asked with doubt whether it was really possible to stop such overwhelming forces with just the runestone. Jinwoo, calm and resolute, replied simply that he would have to try. After obtaining the runestone, Jinwoo turned to the director and asked for one more favor. The scene shifts to Lady Selner, who speaks with quiet astonishment. She admits that she never imagined anyone would come seeking her at a time like this. She studies Jinwoo carefully and questions his identity. She remarks that he is no longer the person she once knew, that in the past, darkness existed only deep within him, but now he has become darkness itself. Jinwoo responds calmly, telling her that he is still the same person she knew, only that he has fully embraced the darkness she had once glimpsed. He then asks her if she can truly see the future and requests that she look into what lies ahead for him. Lady Selner nods, acknowledging his request, and gently takes his hand. Moments pass in silence. Tears begin to flow from her eyes as she asks, with a mixture of sorrow and disbelief, whether Jinwoo truly intends to shoulder everything alone. She wonders how a single human could possibly bear such a burden, questioning whether he plans to protect the world by sacrificing himself entirely. Hearing her words, Jinwoo rises and remarks with quiet relief that her concern shows he can still reach his goal, that there is still hope for him to succeed. Lady Selner warns him that no one will remember his deeds. The fight ahead will be lonely, one he must face entirely on his own. Despite this, Jinwoo begins to teleport away, determined to continue his mission. The scene shifts to Jinwoo standing atop a tall skyscraper. He pulls out his phone and places a call. On the other end, a familiar voice hesitantly asks if it is really him. Jinwoo apologizes for his absence, explaining that he has been busy. The voice belongs to Hunter Cha Hyen, who reassures him that it is fine, admitting she has been busy as well. Jinwoo comments that it has been a long time since they last met and promises that they will see each other soon. Cha Hyen requests a promise that Jinwoo will indeed come to see her. He replies firmly that he will. Upon hearing this, she smiles, comforted by his assurance. Their moment is interrupted when Hunter Choi Jong-in approaches and tells them that it is time to move forward. The camera pans out to reveal hunters from across the globe gathering for the impending battle. The Asian Hunter Alliance, the European Hunter Alliance, the African Temporary Guild Union, and the Chinese Emergency Response Alliance have all mobilized. Hundreds of thousands of hunters prepare to march to the battlefield, each one aware of the stakes ahead. The story shifts back to Canada. Antares, the monarch of destruction, stands atop countless corpses of fallen hunters. He channels a massive wave of mana, deliberately sending it across the world for Jinwoo to sense. With his power resonating through the skies, he declares that he is right there. The magnitude of Antares' mana wave is so immense that it reverberates across the entire world, reaching Jinwoo wherever he is. Antares speaks with deadly confidence, proclaiming that he has already claimed the lives of tens of millions of humans. He taunts Jinwoo, asking how much longer he plans to hide. Jinwoo, calm yet resolute, replies that he will come to face him soon. The season finale ends here. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. Thanks again for your support, and I'll see you next time.